We are smack dab in the middle of American Craft Beer Week. So today I want to talk about one of my favorite local beers from Las Vegas. It's called Able Baker's Atomic Duck. It's a 7% IPA with a little bit of a malty backbone, but what I actually want to talk a little bit more about is where the name came from. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, the US government was actually doing nuclear testing in the Nevada desert right outside of Las Vegas. I wonder if there's still radiation around. You know what? Never mind. And the first two bombs that they dropped were called Able and Baker, hence the name of the brewery. Now this is where it gets even weirder. Now, according to legend, the only thing that walked out after the blasts was a single duck, which is why Able Baker Brewing named its flagship beer Atomic Duck. Now you know. For more beer and horror fun facts, follow us on social and listen to our podcast. And hey, enjoy American Craft Beer Week.
Check this out, guys. Look at that! What? This is all water vapor because this car runs on hydrogen. This is an air blade that wraps around the car and it actually moves back up again. That's for better aerodynamics. Ready? We're gonna open her up and go. What? Have you ever seen a car like this in your life?
Quantum tunneling is responsible for many important phenomena such as the alpha decay of atomic nuclei and the operation of certain types of diodes. Yet quantum tunneling is completely contrary to our intuition about how the universe is supposed to work. This is because quantum tunneling has absolutely no analogy in classical physics. To understand quantum tunneling, we must understand that particles don't have a defined position until they're observed. Instead, all particles are described by what we call a wave function. The probability of a particle being observed at a particular location is given by the square of the amplitude of the wave function at that location. In this example, the red sphere represents the most probable location where we'll observe the particle, because this is where the amplitude is greatest. Suppose that the particle bounces off a barrier, where the energy of the barrier is greater than the energy of the particle. This is represented by the wave function reflecting at the boundary. Let's take a look at how the wave function behaves inside the barrier. As the distance into the barrier increases, the amplitude of the wave function decreases exponentially. But the wave function doesn't actually reach an amplitude of 0. Now, let's consider a new scenario where the barrier is shorter in length. As before, the amplitude of the wave function will decay inside the barrier. But since the wave function doesn't reach an amplitude of 0, the wave function can exit the barrier on the other side. Once the wave function exits the barrier, its amplitude no longer decays. A portion of the wave function passes through each of the two boundaries. And a portion of the wave function also reflects at each of the two boundaries. This means that there is a certain probability that the particle will pass through the barrier to the other side, and a certain probability that the particle will bounce off the barrier. If we send a number of these particles towards the barrier, some of them will pass through and some of them will bounce off. If we send a number of these particles towards the barrier, some of them will pass through and some of them will bounce off. Now let's consider yet another scenario where the barrier's length is even shorter. In this case, the wave function doesn't have as much distance to decay inside the barrier, and we therefore have a larger amplitude for the portion of the wave function that exits the barrier. This means that with this shorter barrier, the particle has a greater probability of passing through. It also means that the particle